Hi everyone. As a follow-up to my video where I showed everyone how to format an MLA style document in the online or O365 version of Microsoft Word, I wanted to show everyone how to do this in the native or desktop version of Word. The functionality is a little bit different. The online version is kind of a little bit watered down. It doesn't have as many buttons or as many options that you can see. So although the process is very similar and it utilizes pretty much the same tools, I just wanted to sort of show everyone how to do it here because it is a little bit different. The look is a little bit different. And with that in mind, I do want to note here that I am using a Mac. For those of you who are using the desktop version for a Windows or PC system, the buttons and things like that might be laid out just a little bit differently than here on this tutorial, but you should have very similar kinds of options and very similar setup. It might be a little different here or there, but for the most part, you could probably still use this tutorial to sort of, walk you through the process, even from a non-Mac. So let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing that we want to do with an MLA document is make sure that we have 1-inch margins around our entire thing. So the first thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to the layout function up top at this very top ribbon here. So layout, over here to the left, it says margins. I'm going to click margins and make sure I'm on the option that has 1 inch all around. Now I'm already there. This is what I need. But if you're on one of these other spacing options, just click up to the correct one. If for some reason this particular option is not viewable or not there for some reason, I don't know why that would be the case, but if it's not, you can always come down to custom margins, press that, it'll pop up this menu here. And what you'll do is just make sure for the top, bottom, left, and right, it says 1 inch. Of course, mine does already, but if yours doesn't, make sure that you just correct to the, proper specifications. And then down below, you're just going to put OK. Now, the next thing that you're going to want to do is add a header. Now the header and the footer are the space at the very top and the very bottom of your page. And the text in these spaces is designed in its initial function and without too much, cajoling of the properties thereof. That text is the text is essentially supposed to appear on every single page of your document as you design it. So to put in a header, I'm going to come up here to the insert function. And if you look over here, it says header and footer. Sometimes these two things are combined, but I'm going to click on header. Oops. And then I'm just going to put, I'm just going to choose this blank one. It's fine. I'm actually not going to type here. I'm going to delete this. But now you can see that the header is present, and so too is your footer down below. Like it shows you kind of where that space is going to be. So the first thing I'm going to do up here in my header is I'm actually going to go to the insert function again, and I'm going to put in my page number. Now here, where it says page number, I'm going to click this little thing and then I'm going to just click page number. It's going to give me a little box so I can tell the system where I want my page number to be. I want it to be at the top of the page in the header position. I'm already sort of clicked in there, so it's already highlighted. But if for some reason if you're not already clicked in there, just make sure you choose header in this position. So top of page header. I'm going to have it aligned to the right side of my page. That's correct. If it says anything else, just correct it. Go to right. And then it asks if you want to show on the first page. Just keep it clicked. You do. There are some older versions of MLA where the first page is supposed to be different than the subsequent pages, but you don't need to worry about this here. Those are older versions of MLA. But if for some reason you have a teacher that doesn't want it on there, they're using an old version, but that's okay. You just click this and it won't show on the first page. It'll just start listing it once you get into page 2, 3, 4, and so on. But I do want it because the current version of MLA, you're supposed to have it on the first page. So we're going to keep it there. I'm going to press OK. And you'll note that it has the number here. Okay. And then once I get on the second page, it's going to have, page 2, page 3, whatever. So I'm going to click right here in front of this, and oops. It gives me the frame, but I'm going to click inside this frame, and I'm going to put my last name and a space. Okay. So this is going to make sure that my last name and then whatever the page number is appears on each of the pages of my document. Okay. So now I'm going to click back outside of this. Actually, I'm going to show you one other thing. So once you double click in your header here, and it should bring up your menus. One of the first things that you'll need to know if you have one of those teachers who does want everything not on the first page, what you're going to do is just click different first page. So now that I push different first page, it's going to have a first page header. And then once I get to the second page, third page, whatever, it's going to hold over what I've already typed. But I don't actually want a different first page because, again, that's older versions of MLA. But, if you encounter a teacher that wants it different or wants an older version, that's how you remove that. Okay, but we do want it for the current version. Okay, so now I'm going to click back into my document where I can start putting in what I need next, which is your name block. Now, in your name block, you're first going to have your name. You're going to enter down, put your instructor's name. The next thing is the course name. So like History 261 or, the American Revolution or like whatever the case may be. Or if you're in, the, Linguistics 101 or, whatever. You're going to put your course name next. And then you're going to add the date that your assignment is due. So if your assignment is due, for example, on August 15th of 2021, the standard is that you put the day first. So it'd be 15, the name of the month spelled out, so August, and then the year with 4 digits. So if it's 2021. Now, I don't know too many instructors that are going to be super mean about it if you did something like 8/15/21, right? They're probably not going to be like too finicky about that, but technically the correct version is 15 August 2021. Okay, so now I'm going to enter down, and it's time to put in my title of my paper. All MLA documents should include a title. The thing is, right now we're aligned to the left, which is accurate for most of your document, but your title you actually want in the center. So you need to find your text alignment buttons, which are these ones right here, where it can go left aligned, centered, right aligned, or where it kind of block texts, where it makes sure it justifies all the way across. Okay. But what I want is actually just centered. So I'm going to do this, and I can type in my title. So this is where my title goes, and it should be properly capitalized. Okay, so I probably have actually a couple. I probably do. This is where my title goes, and it should be properly capitalized. So as the title says, make sure you do appropriately capitalize your titles. The very beginning should be capitalized, and then all of your more meaty sort of words should be capitalized. If you have like little words in here like is, and, it, etc., those can be lowercase, but everything else should be capitalized at the beginning, including even if, for example, you use it or is or something like that at the very beginning word of your title, it should also be capitalized if it comes at the beginning. But if they happen throughout, like these littler words, they don't have to be capitalized. But everything else should be. Your meatier words should be. So now I'm going to enter down where we can start our paragraphs. Now you'll notice that once I enter down, it keeps this formatting where it's in the center, but I want my paragraphs to be left aligned again. So I'm going to click the left alignment button, and you can start your paragraph, but you need to make sure that you indent. So the first line of your paragraph should have a half an inch, indentation, which means it should come in a little bit. So you can use the tab key, T-A-B, on your keyboard, hit tab, and you'll notice that it jumps over half an inch. Okay, so I can start typing my paragraph. So this is my first paragraph, and I will make sure that this paragraph and those that come after are all properly indented. Okay. So now, just to give the effect, I'm going to sort of copy and paste this a few times just to give the effect of a paragraph. So Command C, and you only need one space after your period before you start a new paragraph. There used to be old manuals that would tell you to do two, but this is no longer accurate. Okay. So I think I technically needed a comma here. Yes, I did. See, even I make mistakes sometimes. So we're just going to put it in. It'll be fine. Okay, so we have essentially the effect of a paragraph here that we can sort of move forward with for the purposes of these examples. So we notice here that everything is single spaced currently, which means that each line comes like directly after. There's no space in between, or not a substantial amount of space in between. But your papers in MLA format should be double spaced. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of my text. You can see here that I just, put my cursor at the beginning and then dragged my mouse down to select everything I have so far. The other thing that you can do is you can do, on a Mac, it's Command A. I believe on a desktop, it's like Control A, and you can collectively, select everything that way as well. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this tool up here that has like an arrow up and an arrow down and these lines. So this is going to affect your line spacing and paragraph spacing. So I'm going to click right here, and you could just push double space. And that would make everything doubled. Now I do want to show you though, if I go to line spacing options, click this, and if you'll look down below here where it says spacing, there are some times that when you first start writing your name black and you start entering down, you might notice that it looks double spaced until you start writing your paragraphs. So you'll have something that looks like this for your name block, and then it will look single spaced down below. And if that's the case, then what's happening is you're going to want to look over here where it says spacing. And if it has a number other than 0, either before or after, you're going to want to make sure that it reverts to 0. Because the reason for this is if it says after, then after your paragraphs, it's basically going to, anytime you enter down, it's going to create what looks like a double space or something similar, but it isn't technically a double spacing, at least in terms of like the technical aspects of this. So make sure those are all 0, and then just make sure it says line spacing instead of single, double. Okay. And then that should resolve any of those weird spacing or dual spacing looking options. And this is the proper sort of formatting. Now, after you put in that information, you're going to come down here to where it says okay to apply it. Okay, nothing changed because we were already there, but if you already had some of those other issues in there, then that's how you would solve that. Okay, so now another thing that you need to keep in mind, especially as you start writing in more academic contexts, sometimes once you get larger or longer papers, you're probably going to have your instructors, professors, etc., recommend subheading or subtitling your papers. So if I wanted to do that, then for example, if I entered down here, I would put introduction. But this first level of subheading, I actually want that to be aligned to the left. So I'm going to just put my cursor right before introduction, and I'm going to use my text alignment keys to bring that to the left. Now, for your first tier of subheading, I'm going to actually highlight this and choose to make it bold. Everything else should not be bold, but unless it's, you know, some very specific sort of formatting issue or quote you're making or something. But your first subtitle should be in bold. If for some reason you have like a subsection, like if you had an introduction part 1, for example, this would not be standard to have multiple parts of an introduction, but just for the sake of, you know, showing you how this would look if you had, you know, first and second parts to other parts of your body, I'm just going to use this. The second tier, you don't want that to be bold, so I'm going to remove the bold and I'm going to add italics. Those should be italicized. So if I had introduction, part 1, and then it would look like this, and then that would imply that I would have a part 2. The part 2 should also be italicized, and then down here I can put my paragraph. I'm just going to copy and paste this one to give you the effect. So Command C and Command V. Now, note that it did not automatically indent, so I do need to indent my paragraph still. So just using that tab key, T-A-B. So then that would be my first part, and then I would go to my next section. So let's say my next section is my methodology, for example. I'm going to enter down and put methodology. Now you'll notice that this time when I enter down, it automatically indented. So I want to remove that indent. I want it to be all the way to the left. And then I'm also going to make this bold, okay? Because this belongs to the same level as introduction, right? This is a new subsection of my paper. And if I had it like a subsection to that, then again, down here, I'd have an italics, but we're just going to pretend like it has one thing. So I'm going to add a paragraph down there just to give the effect again. So I'm going to enter down, and it added it. So now you'll notice that we're getting into page 2. So you'll notice up here, lower 2, right? So my last name and the page number did correctly come down here into my header. So we're going to pretend like we're all done with the paper in terms of, writing. Let's say it's kind of a short paper, but that's all right. So the next thing we want to do is add our works cited page. All MLA documents should have a works cited page if there is anything that you have quoted or paraphrased from someone else or anything like that. So that way you can make sure you lead your readers to or provide information about those particular works that you have cited. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that I put my works cited page on a separate page. So even if you have space on a page, on your last page that you've written, you don't want to start your works cited on that page. You want to do what's called a page break. So the way that you do a page break is you're going to go up here into the insert function. And right here it says pages. It might say something like breaks or something like that, but pages, I'm going to press this. And it says I can add a cover page, a blank page, or a page break. I want to go to page break. So once I enter that page break, you'll see that it jumped me down to the next page. So where I ended on page 2, it said, okay, we're going to not use any of this blank space. We're just going to come to page 3. Now, your works cited does need a title for that page. So it's going to be works cited. But I actually do not want this to be bold. It should just be regular text. So I'm going to come over here, remove the bold. Now you want your works cited title to be actually in the center of your page, much like the title of your actual work, okay? So to do that, I'm going to put my cursor in front of works cited, and I'm going to come up here to my text alignment features and go to the centered portion. Then I'm going to enter down, and this is where I can put in my first entry. Now my first entry though, or any of your entries rather, should not be centered like the title. Instead, you want it left aligned again. Now I'm going to come over here to my text alignment buttons, and I'm going to go to the left align to make that happen for me. So let's just put in a fake thing here. So let's pretend we have a work that we quoted or something. Barrington, Joshua. You do the title of the article in quotation marks. This is the title of a fancy article in an academic book. My apologies, my long guy's doing yard work, so you might hear some things. I apologize. Okay, so let's say we have our title in there. So after the title, we do the title of the book that the article appears in. So something like, this is a, let's see, totally made up book title for the purpose of this works cited tutorial page. Okay, let me period, and then we'll say, let's say it had it edited by Maria Santa Anna, period. Let's say it's by Oxford, or published by Oxford University Press, and in 2018, comma, pages 286 rather through 99, period. Okay. So this is my first entry. Now notice though in your works cited that every line kind of goes down, and it's aligned to the left rather. But you need to make sure that you have a hanging indent for each of your works cited entries. Now what this means, a hanging indent means that the first line is going to continue to be aligned all the way to the left, but your subsequent lines for that entry, so any additional information that falls onto line 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever, it means that those subsequent lines underneath the first are going to be indented in by 1/2 inch. Okay, so how I'm going to do this is I'm going to highlight my page here, and then I'm going to do what is essentially a right click and bring up this sub menu and go to paragraph. Okay, now that I'm in my paragraph thing here, notice where it says indentation, left, right, those are both at 0, that's where it's supposed to be, but there's this thing here that says special. Right now it says none, but I'm going to use this little drop down menu here and choose hanging. So I'm going to choose hanging, and then I need to, down at the bottom of the menu, press OK to apply it, and then you'll notice that these 2 lines jumped over. Okay, now let's say that I have more entries to do. So of course everything should be in alphabetical order on your works cited page by the last name of the author or whatever the first piece of information is. So let's say the next one is I don't know, Chester Pedro, another fancy title that is made up for this tutorial. Oops. And it is in the work, another totally fake book for the purpose of this work. Okay. And we're just going to pretend like I finished this out. But what I wanted to show you here is as long as you enter down after having finished this, anytime you start a new paragraph or in this case, a new entry, it will automatically revert to the hanging indent here, right? So you shouldn't have to do it for every single work. Now, the other thing that you'll keep in mind here is if you need to add let's say you have someone with the last name of an A, with an A, you might have to you would basically just enter down and be like, Adams, Morticia, whatever. This line right here, you might need to redo the hanging indent again. But anything that comes after one that you've already formatted that way, it should like this one, revert to the hanging. But again, up here, you might need to reapply it if you add, prior to the one that you initially formatted. Okay. Now, the last major page that you might need, I'm going to enter down here, and I'm going to add another page break before we put in what is called the appendix. Now, the appendix is where you would stick any like charts or figures or things like that you referenced in your work, but needed or didn't want to include it in like the text proper. So I'm going to go to Insert, Pages, Page Break, and this brings me to my next page. I'm going to title it Appendix. But notice again, it's to the left. We want this to be centered on the page. So I'm going to go before, go to Home, use my text tools up here, and center it. And then you would just, like I say, paste in any graphs, charts, pieces of information that you needed or referenced in your work, but didn't want to have in the proper or the paper proper. Okay, so something else that you might want to keep in mind, there are a lot of professors or instructors, things like that, that have specific styles of text. Maybe they want you to use Arial or Times New Roman. Those are probably the two most common, and they probably want you to use either font size 10 or 12. So I'm going to do a Command A to choose everything. Command A. And you'll notice here up at the top, this is where you can select your font. I'm going to go with Arial. You'll notice that it changes everything then for you. And then I'm going to change my font size. Well, let's say 10. But honestly, if your instructor allows you to do a 12, it's usually easier for our eyes because we're getting older. So you can use this. Notice that it does not necessarily change in here. So you might need to come in here and separately change this font. So I'm going to go Home, Arial, and size 12. Okay, so now it matches. Okay. So that is essentially how you format the document. Now, to get this out of here, you can do like File, Save As, and then you can save it as a Word document, or say down here, File Format, Word document, or you could do like a PDF. PDF is usually your best bet unless your instructor has a very specific format that they want from you. PDF usually is the best way. I'm just going to cancel this for now, but you would, title it, choose where in your Mac or wherever, or your computer more proper, that you want to store it, so that way you can locate it when you're done, and then hit save. I'm going to cancel for the moment though. But PDF documents are usually the best in that they will properly preserve all of the formatting for the most part that you have done throughout your paper. When you use any other format like Word, .docx or .doc or, stuff like that, sometimes depending on the conversion process from when it comes to you to when it goes to somebody else or whatever, sometimes it can screw up the formatting or the way that it looks. Or the way that it's put on the paper, which we just took a lot of pains to make sure it looks a very specific way to align with MLA standards. So the PDF will usually preserve that. The other sort of document type that's often usually pretty good and usually works on other people's, desktops and things like that is the .docx. Sometimes .rtf, although you're kind of getting into territory with those two that it may not preserve exactly the formatting that you have just painstakingly put together. So PDF is usually the best, but depending on what file types your instructor has approved for turning in and things like that, you may need to sacrifice a little bit on your formatting, but hopefully it won't be too bad. Okay, so I think that kind of covers it. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know.